Welcome to the summer of ABM. Hey, this is a fantastic day, our inaugural event, and it's a sold-out show. Thank you so much for registering and coming in today. We really appreciate it. I'm Mark Ogney, founder of the Account-Based Marketing Consortium, and one of the instigators of this theme today. So this is a brand new thing, Summer of ABM, and it's like summer camp. Come here, learn more, earn a merit badge in ABM. And what's really new about this is we're bringing together the top thought leaders. We're picking topics that are really cool, but we're also delivering it in a really interactive way. So it'll be live streaming. We're going to have video from people all around the world. We're going to have a tweet up going simultaneously. Use the hashtag #SummerOfABM. And this will become a new standard for all events. It'll be a lot of fun. And thank you again for a sold-out show for our inaugural event. So let's get started today, and you'll notice a couple of things. First, on your interface, you can enter questions, and we will use your questions and we'll answer them towards the end of the presentation. That'll be a focus for us, and please enter all the questions you have along the way. Also, in the bottom right-hand corner of every screen that we go through, you'll notice that there's a hashtag, #SummerOfABM, but also there will be contextual to whoever's speaking at that time, their Twitter handle, and then maybe some recommendations for other hashtags that you could use along the way. So please participate. That's what this is all about. So let's get started here. Who's going to be showing up today? Well, myself. I mentioned I'm EVP at Demand Metric. I'm also the founder of the Account-Based Marketing Consortium. And to my right here, Srihari Kumar. You may have heard of him before. He founded companies like LeadFormix and Captora. Srihari is the founder and CEO of ZenIQ and my partner in this event today. Down to the right there, Christopher Engman, founder and CEO of Vendamore, one of the largest and most established ABM platforms in the world. He's coming to us from Stockholm, Sweden. And last but not least, Robert Slaughter, founder and president of Markistry, very well-known B2B agency focusing on ABM with a long history of demand generation and marketing automation with some tremendous clients. Thank you guys, really appreciate your participation today. Before we really get started, I wanted to set the table here for what is the buying center. So the buying center, I think Gallup did some really good research here because it's relative to the size of the firm. I've seen numbers before like, well, there's 5 people or 7 people or whatever that you need to focus on trying to influence. The reality is for an enterprise sale, it's 34. Okay, and that's a very different scenario. The larger the company, the more complex and the more cross-functional and the more they share insights across these teams. And so from an ABM marketer's perspective, reaching and engaging these people is absolutely pivotal. Now, in some other research that we conducted with the Account-Based Marketing Consortium in December, what we found is that there's a tremendous upside for almost everybody, okay? What we found is that 70% of ABM programs were not planning enough at the account level to get down to be able to see the buying center within each of the accounts. So the upside of everything that we're going to be talking about today is very likely applicable to you. And so in this, what we found is that it's a planning scenario. So it is not just the selection of accounts and delivery of media, but it is looking at the account, understanding their needs, and then beyond that, for the topic today, it's getting down to understand how are decisions being made, who is influencing them, who's making those decisions, and when you can crack that code, you can ultimately understand where they're at, what they're trying to solve, and speak directly to those needs, and measure your ability to connect with those people and engage them. So looking at this as kind of like peeling the onion down, you know, at the account level, that's really large, okay? So you pick a large enterprise account, thousands of employees. Now within those, the buying group is typically going to be related to particular departments. So there may be departments that have nothing to do with the solutions that you sell. So if you were selling marketing technologies, you would probably obviously have the marketing team involved. But you would also probably have somebody like a CEO, maybe a VP of sales involved, and you might also have like a CTO from a technical perspective, maybe even a CFO. But it depends upon what you're selling and the situation at hand. The point, though, is that there's typically multiple departments that influence and help you make decisions around this. And then ultimately, there's a buying center that's the nucleus of the account. These are the people that you absolutely positively have to reach. I just have a paradigm here that at the account level, that's still not close enough. You still waste a lot of media, and oftentimes I hear people talking about just pouring media on top of accounts, hoping to be able to reach the buying center. There's no measure to be able to do that, but the hope is that through such a barrage of media, you would statistically have a great likelihood of hitting them. So we're going to be speaking of a lot of different strategies, though, that get you to the mission-critical nucleus of the account. I really love what Marcus Street put together here. Steve Carell, love the guy, totally funny. But how many times have you been at an event where you see somebody come by, they're really engaging, you scan their badge, great conversation, and you put him in a couple of nurturing flows. A couple of months later, he's downloaded a few white papers, been to a few webinars. But the reality, though, is that he probably couldn't even buy you lunch, let alone buy your product. And that the end result is that all engagement is not created equal. The buying center is the critical component of the engagement, not all other engagement. Not that all other engagement is completely worthless, it's just that the value of that engagement is dramatically less than if you could actually target and find the people who influence and make those decisions. So we're going to start the conversation off today with Srihari Kumar. I mentioned that he is the CEO of ZenIQ, also previously the founder and CEO of a couple of other MarTech companies. In those other roles, he's had a distinct opportunity to be able to see these types of transitions or innovation that's occurred where there's a great influx of I think Gartner called it the hype cycle. So the elevation of just the peak of anticipation and expectations. How can we actually cut through that? And what might we learn, Srihari, based upon your experiences? Could you speak to this for a moment?
Honestly, this roller coaster is not fun, especially the low. And for those people who have lived through, say, the marketing automation hype cycle from its beginning, how would you have done it differently, right? Would you have just deployed the marketing automation platform and expected leads to start pouring in without doing the necessary segmentation or creating the content that's needed for the nurturing flows? So if you were to look at ABM through those glasses, would you just buy an ABM platform and expect it to move the needle? This is what is happening today with many people because of this hype that's building up. So I'm going to propose to you right now the things that will let you avoid this roller coaster of the high and the low. There is 3 or 4 things you have to do. First, build out the infrastructure needed for account-based marketing, which is making sure the data is right, the data is enriched, all that stuff. The infrastructure is super important. Next is the processes, right? Do you have the right processes in place? Because it's a team effort. ABM is a team effort. The third important piece is, which we are talking about today, is mapping out the buying center. So in addition to choosing and exercising the diligence in choosing your target accounts, spend the time mapping out the buying center. And we'll get into what is a buying center and what does it mean shortly. And lastly, make sure you execute multi-channel campaigns and not just single channel. So that's what I wanted to share on the roller coaster hype cycle of ABM.
Thank you very much. Hey, Christopher, how do you contrast and correlate the roles of sales and marketing? I mean, we hear a lot about sales and marketing alignment, but I would kind of think that if we're targeting at this level with individuals, it starts to bring into play an adaptation or a correlation, I guess, with where salespeople are heading. Can you speak to that for a moment?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Mark. I think we're up to at least a few thousand ABM programs. So what we've seen in the who is doing what between the two teams is that to be able to run an ABM program that is super synchronized, and what this picture tried to show you is that you blend content uniquely per account depending on phase, depending on buying center, depending on which kind of solution you try to drive with each account. So going back into the split of work, marketing should be running the ABM program and the sub-projects within ABM. The marketing department should also be responsible for the account-based marketing advertising. because that part is clearly run from the marketing department. But it needs to be with a clear dialogue with the key account managers. So going back into this picture, if I'm the key account manager for customer 1, 2, and 3, I should be speaking to the account-based marketeer about what we should do with those 3 accounts. So sales should be heavily involved, but marketing should run it. And then the good news is that we can reuse a lot of the content from anyone who's created segment-specific or persona-specific content that can be reused in this example in the picture. And when it comes to the other channels, so that this picture is a lot focused on the advertising part, which is what we cover. When you go into emails and letters, what we have seen as the best practice is that marketing should draft the email text and the letter texts, but they should be finalized by sales. Let me give you an example. I've been in a dialogue last week with 2 people inside my top accounts. All of a sudden, marketing is saying we should send these emails to your contacts. Obviously, I would like to mention a few things about my last meeting with especially those 2 people that I've just met. Otherwise, the email would look a bit weird, and I would want to make sure it comes from me. So I think that there needs to be a strong cooperation between the 2. And what we've also seen in the best practice programs is that you should at least have a monthly meeting between sales and marketing, and start at the top, bring in the best key account managers. If you get them on board, they're really driving the program together with you. And sales, on the other hand, they should be responsible for account plans. One thing we've seen is that if there is not at least an embryo of an account plan, there's kind of no point of running account-based marketing. So account-based marketing, in my view, is the equivalent of key account management, but in the marketing fortress. Yeah, that's the division of tasks that I see. And these monthly meetings are just spectacular because you have marketing and sales sitting in the same room, including the account-based marketing vendor, and you're talking about the tactics to run per account. So in the picture that we see, we can all of a sudden say, well, now we just encountered a competitor. Oops, we need to throw in these 3 articles and this messaging because that is kind of helping us to compete with this particular competitor in that account.
So
yeah, that would be my...
I'm sorry, a question real quick is, it sounds like it's a little bit of a chicken and egg with, if you don't have the account level planning, it's maybe harder to gain alignment with the sales organization. Is that accurate? Is that what I'm trying to glean some additional information from your point?
Yeah, I would say that the account-based marketing programs that do fail is where you have companies where sales don't have a real clue about what they should talk about to each account. So if there is not even an embryo of an account plan, I honestly don't think you should go for an ABM. That's kind of a hygiene level. Of course, my experience is with Tweaked. We work almost entirely with really big companies and their biggest accounts. So I'm kind of super enterprise tweaked. But yeah, if you don't have the account plans, at least on an embryo level, I wouldn't even start an ABM program.
Okay, thank you. Hey, Robert, there's a lot of conversation. I was going to use the word noise, but there's a lot of blogging and tweeting about account selection and some of the technologies that surround the selection. Do you see that as a complete idea or a start of the right idea?
Well, we see it as a step in the right direction, but I think Srihari did a really good job talking about the hype cycle. Christopher really did a great job of talking about account planning, and that's really where we're seeing the big gap there. And account selection and ad delivery is not an ABM strategy. Let's be honest here. And that's what we find that happens a lot with people that are new, 101 with ABM. They need to ask how. We need to get back to some type of strategy and planning, as Christopher was mentioning, with what he just discussed. But we work with very large organizations as well, and we, tend to call it bespoke marketing. A lot of our organizations are looking at maybe 100 to 200 key accounts that are going to drive 80 to 90% of their revenue for the entire year. So, and each one of these organizations has tens of thousands of employees. It makes no difference to them to reaching all those employees by targeting an IP address. What they need to do is they need to know every single thing about that buying center. That's who they want to target. And sales has been doing this for decades. This is key account selling. This is developing org charts. This is exactly what they've been doing and what they've been taught to do because the payout is so large. Knowing who is influencing, who matters inside of these buying centers. And, we're going to talk about it a little bit more as we dig deeper, but, it's just a lot of hard work. So that's what we're seeing right now.
Okay. I'm busy tweeting over here at the same time, so double tasking at the moment. I wanted to ask each of you a kind of a three-part question with regard to the buying center. Now, how would you describe it? How would you specify its role to marketing and the value to ABM? So the three things, how would you describe it, and then how would you identify its role in marketing, its value to ABM? And let's go in the order of the pictures here. Srihari, why don't you take a stab at this?
Sure. So everyone knows what the buying center composes of. There's a decision maker, there's an influencer, there's a user, and actually you can split it up even more. There's a primary buyer and secondary buyer and financial buyer and all that stuff. But the question is, Mark, as you said earlier, it takes anywhere between 7 to 34 people at an account to make a decision, right, a B2B purchase. But do you actually know how many people at each company matter to you, right? What is the buying center? How many people is it? What are their titles and roles? How do you map them to who is the decision maker and who's an influencer? How many touches do you need? How many marketing touches do you need? How many sales touches do you need? Whose engagement is critical in actually moving the deal forward? It might be a director in some cases, it might be a VP level or a C-level exec in some cases, and in some cases it might just be a manager level person, right? So how do you know? And depending on the size of the company, the industry vertical, the geography, there's so many different variables here. And if you ask someone, hey, do you know your buying center? They might say, yeah, if you're selling HR software, it's VP and director of HR. But did you know that there is somebody called VP of culture or VP of talent management or director of people operations that you needed to engage also at these accounts, right? So that's critical in understanding at each company how many people do you need, who are they, whose engagement do you need, how many touches do you need, what message resonates with them. In this HR example, the cost of disengaged employees resonates extremely well with the VP level versus gamification of employee reviews resonates better with the director level person, right? So how do you go about understanding this? This is what we call as mapping out the buying center.
Excellent. And Christopher?
Yeah. So I think, No, I think what's critical to understand is something we see in most of our clients. We typically work with enterprise health companies, and they need to influence several buying centers. So one mix could be we are selling something like Srihari mentioned. We're selling something that relates to HR. Then we typically need to influence IT, HR, and some kind of C-level. So there are kind of various buying centers. And I think there is in complex B2B selling, what you see is that there is a trend towards more and more managed services, more and more outsourcing, more and more really complex setups. So you do get bigger audiences. And I think the data you gave, Mark, about 34 people, that's from Gallup, right? I think in most of our clients, that buying center could be a few hundred people. like for ERP vendors and those kind of guys. But no, I think you do really need to look for the buying centers and figure out which people do I need to influence and which people do I need to target directly, like Srihari mentioned, because some people should only be covered by more lightweight communication like videos, ads, etc. Whereas others you need to approach with a more individualized method, like emails and letters and direct calls, etc. One thing though on decision making, I think I was a CIO in the past for a fairly large company, and I thought it became a CIO that decisions were initiated from the top. Is very often not. It's triggered by people on the floor, and they raise it up inside the organization, and it becomes important. Anyway, that was just an additional perspective.
Hey, Robert.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we all know that sales understands this concept at a granular level, but getting marketers to start to really understand how complex understanding your buying center can be, it makes their heads explode. So we really do at some points have to make it very simple and just let them know that the people that make up your buying center are the only people that matter inside the account. Everyone else is a time suck, and we all know how valuable our time is. Marketers are doing so much more with less time, less budget, less personnel, but they're asked to produce more results. And we just try to simplify it for them and getting them to understand that we need to focus on the people that matter. Everyone else is a time suck.
You know, it seems to me also an interesting part of the conversation, and maybe Srihari would have a more POV, and maybe Robert as well, but with inbound marketing and marketing automation, you know the cost of a lead, but you don't know the value of the lead, right? And that is, I think, one of the disconnects that always has plagued marketing for being able to attribute itself to deals going through a pipeline. You know, it's mostly kind of working, and it's not at an anonymous level, but there is no strong correlation between influence of a decision because of the nurturing flows and the marketing that occurred there. Whereas ABM, in particular, if you're looking at a buying center, that fuses it across the different parts of the marketing mix, and you could start to identify, hey, marketing helped to build out, you know, and found additional roles or found, you know, people in the buying center. You know, so we acquired the influence in marketing. We see from air cover, we see engagement from some of these people. We also see through email, maybe through telemarketing, direct mail. You know, we're able to then actually align and specify moments in time where people who are influential or critical in making decisions that we're trying to drive for had engaged with marketing. It seems to me you're getting much closer to the point of being able to assign value to engagement, which has been one of those elements of marketing that's been missed before. Anybody want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I can, add to that. So agree. Yeah. So in the traditional lead methodology, lead scoring, there is no concept of how important is this individual in the buying center, and I think that's where whether you call it, a marketing qualified account or an account score or a lead score weighted by their position in the buying center. Any way you look at it, it's all the same thing. What you're essentially saying is weight the engagement of the individual along with their position in the buying center. Are they a primary buyer or a key influencer or a user? Depending on that, you weight, right? So the buying center is a critical piece that you need in order to do that.
Excellent. Anybody else? Thank you. For me, a lot of this conversation sounds a bit intuitive, but what are some of the struggles? So let's say that somebody watching this presentation today is interested in this. What are some of the struggles that might keep them from this, or maybe to project, what are some of the struggles that have kept them from this level of detail in the past? And again, let's go through the order here. And Srihari, why don't you take a first stab at that?
Yeah, I would say, there's 3 reasons why this is extremely hard to do, though it's intuitive. The first is what I call title sprawl. So a VP of HR may not be called a VP of HR. The individual might be called VP of People, or VP of Culture, or VP of Talent, or VP of People Operations and Talent Management, and so on and so forth. So you just don't know what that individual is called at that company, and to figure it out manually, it's extremely hard. Second reason is what I call, again, tribal. Your best salespeople and SDRs actually have figured out who they should engage, whose engagement is needed, who to call first. Do you go high or low? What message is resonating with what title and role and so on? But that's tribal knowledge. How can you institutionalize it and actually drive marketing programs based on this, right? And the third is just changes in the buying center. There's constant change. And how can you keep up with it manually, right? So a case in point, there was a company, a public company, that said, hey, we have every contact source out there. Our database is 100,000 people. We know everyone. Do you really think you can programmatically figure out the gaps? Because there are no gaps. And when we ran the test, we found 37,000 new people that were relevant, and that by itself, closed that deal right there, right? So it is. You need data science. You need to institutionalize this thing, and you need to be able to do it in a programmatic way in order to do this. So that's what we have found.
Super. And Christopher.
Yes. So I would go back to what Srihari touched upon in his initial talk. So going back to hype curves, I think in the first 7 years of our company, we offered our ABM product as a product. We gave it to the clients, we gave them training, and we thought it was really simple for them. But that failed utterly. It was really unsuccessful. And in the beginning, we'd never understood why. But then, like Srihari mentioned, in you as well, Mark, we looked at the marketing automation industry, and we've seen that most of the big companies have been using already maybe 2 to 3 marketing automation platforms. And you might ask why, and it's because the marketing automation industry has been selling technology. So to not end up in that kind of bad angle, we decided a few years ago to go for managed services. We are a product company, but we offer it as a managed service. When we do that, we can give the client all the knowledge, so they don't have to learn everything we've learned, because we've done really bad things in the past. We've been doing many mistakes. We don't want the client to do that. So we instead of starting here, they can start here, and then we blend our knowledge with their knowledge, and they're off getting ROI really fast. And then they can, at any point in time, say, okay, now we want to, for whatever reason, run it as a product. Then they can, but then they're kind of onboarded, been using us as a managed service and we have clients that they never want to go from there. They want to be using it as a managed service, full stop. But then we have clients that says after a year or two, say, okay, now we really know how to do this. So you transfer knowledge as you go, and instead of trying to study it and get a quick certification, we're really working with them. We're growing much slower doing it, but we have more happy clients.
Happy is good. Robert.
I think Srihari nailed it. I mean, it's hard. And for marketers, it's extremely difficult. I mean, these marketers, once again, as well-intentioned as they are, putting this amount of effort into mapping the buying center and then mapping the proper content for the stages that these buyers are in. And I think that we need to take a huge step back, and we need to look at, okay, so how are these marketers being incentivized? What are their KPIs? Have we even touched on that yet? Because, when these things, this is a long-term play. This is not a magic bullet that's going to produce results. And that's what a large part of these marketers are being engaged upon, which allows them to look for the easy way out. These new shiny objects that hit the market in MarTech, as we've talked about in the hype cycle. And they look for these things because, once again, they're being judged on the here and now. And it's about click-through rates and open rates a lot of times with marketers. And that's not how any of this works when we get into these buying centers and really fostering and nurturing the relationships with these buyers.
I'm going to make 1 point and a question. So, Christopher, what you had mentioned about services component. I remember reading when Eloqua was purchased into Oracle, it was close to 60% of their revenue was based upon services, which is very antithetical to the way most people should think of a SaaS platform. But where we're driving to in this conversation here, it directly parallels. Am I correct in thinking, so a lot of this conversation, and I think Christopher, and all of you have really hit upon this to the point, it starts to move the conversation from being strictly display ad focused to the opportunity of multiple channels. And I'm going to once again go through the order of events here with the pictures, but could each of you speak to that? Is this concept somehow enabling, the concept of a buy-in center, is it enabling to multi-channel, and if so, how?
Yeah, so what we have found, for example, when you actually do this analysis, right, of what's working in the buying center, we found that, for example, for C-level execs, events are super important, right? Events are what engage them. It's not a web demo. While for a director level individual, it's a web demo of the actual application that engages them. So if you look at it, it is a multi-channel, multi-person strategy, whether you call it account-based orchestration or whatever term you want to use. You need that understanding of the position of the individual in the buying center so that you can use the appropriate channel and the appropriate message and appropriate content for them.
Thank you. Christopher.
Yeah, I think it enables multiple channels, but my standard recommendation is to start with the top accounts and have the top key account managers very involved. They know, I mean, if you take the top 5, 10, 15 accounts, the CAMs, they know many of the buying center contacts. So with the direct contacts, they already have some kind of engagement. So the primary thing to add that complements that, because they're typically not so good at driving further engagement inside those accounts, is what you, Mark, would call the air support, which is the account-based advertising. Once that is in place and you've mapped out your buying centers, you've started to get these monthly meetings going, you can consider adding additional forms of touch points such as letters, emails, calls, etc. Strong recommendation here though, don't outsource letters, emails, and calls to an external company. I think that has to be done by the key account managers. An external company or the marketing department can produce the fundament for it, but this has to be, I've seen examples where marketing try to use the direct channels and are not enough aligned with sales. It can end up in a disaster. I've had a meeting with, let's say I'm a salesperson now, I've had a meeting with a very important person in JP Morgan. All of a sudden that person is getting a very generic email from the marketing department. And I've seen meetings where sales are actually screaming out loud. They just go, what on earth are you doing? So I would say when it comes to the key accounts, when it comes to supporting direct channels like emails, letters, and phone calls, make sure they're super involved and that they press the play button. That's my personal opinion and what we've seen in many programs. And make sure you have the monthly meetings with sales to get the relevant and up-to-date data on what's going on inside these accounts. They quite often pick it up really well.
And before I switch to Robert, I just wanted to remind people that we have the ability to ask questions through the GoToWebinar interface. So if you pull out the tray of controls, you'll see an area there called question. And we're also doing tweeting on #Summer of ABM. Robert, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what everyone's said. I think it's interesting that, with the buying center mentality in ABM, we've seen a rebirth in direct mail. And we all know how effective direct mail can be, but it's been cost prohibitive because you cannot scale this the way it needs to be done to be effective. But now with an ABM strategy, with a buying center mentality, now really mail is back into play. Now we also look at, all of our campaigns are multi-channel. We're looking at from display ads to very personalized email to direct mail. And now even we can get our SDRs involved and really pinpoint who they're going to call to set up either what Srihari was talking about, the demo, or a face-to-face at an event, a trade show or something of that nature. So, none of these are scalable unless you apply a buying center mentality into the equation.
And what I'm gathering here is part of this goes back to a point we were making a moment ago, which is you can start to assign a value to engagement when you're looking at people who are influential and critical in making decisions that you're trying to influence. So in that world where you can start to define some value, you can then start to assign what kind of cost am I willing to put against engagement with very particular people so that you can focus, your ROI to come backwards on it. And, it's part of my career. I'm working with the Direct Marketing Association on a board. And so I see a lot of stats come through that are very direct marketing, direct mail focused. The highest ROI channel, like of all digital marketing and TV and catalogs, and it blows me away. I see this like year after year after year. This has, we argue about a $5 or $10 or $15 CPM in digital marketing. Do you know what a CPM is for a catalog? It's like $10,000. And yet they can make, it's, I don't know, the number is like $102 back for every dollar spent on catalogs simply because of what we're talking about right now. More accurate targeting, the ability to discern and discriminate, in a good sense, who it is that you're trying to focus on and what it is that they're interested in. And so, you could have, field events with the right people and, have it at a schwanky hotel or, expensive restaurant, and it makes a lot of sense. But if you just sent out a carte blanche invite to anybody, you could never afford these types of things. So I think that's pretty exciting that, we can start to assign a value to engagement when we start to focus at this level of account planning. Maybe we're starting to touch on this a little bit, but is the buying center actually one of the common denominators of being able to define ABM success or the value of ABM? And I'm hoping that Srihari, you could take this up also. But how do you see the connection of the buying center to ultimately being able to help define the value of ABM?
So the reason marketers are trying ABM is essentially for a couple of reasons, right? One is to make sure their conversion rates, right, from at the conversion rates increase and the pipeline velocities. Essentially, it's pipeline size and pipeline velocity. So either of them you need. So if it's velocity, for example, wouldn't it help to know the position of each person, who you're missing, who you should be talking to actually move the opportunity along faster through the pipeline? Or if it's pipeline size, if you understand for each account, where should you start? Should you start high or low? What is the message that resonates with the individual based on all the experience you have as an organization? Wouldn't it help you increase the conversion rates and the pipeline size? So absolutely. I think this is how B2B marketing has always was supposed to be done. It's almost like B2B marketing has been a stepchild of B2C tools so far, which is why they went the lead route. And I think now there is critical mass around making sure we apply the buying center filter on top of all this and actually make B2B.
Excellent. Hey, Christopher, would you like to add?
Yeah, sure. So I think you should try to measure the effect of the buying centers. I think what you should start with though is to measure just difference. This is the method we've seen most effective. You measure the difference in actually total revenue between the accounts that you're targeting versus the accounts that you're not targeting. And we see improvement in deal velocity, deal size, etc. But actually the biggest game changer is actually another one. It's the number of deals that you do per account. So the biggest game changer in numbers that we see when running ABM programs is that all of a sudden the accounts that you're targeting start to have more buying centers activated. You basically do more deals with them. So cross-selling is the biggest ROI killer that we see. It's really, really, really kicking ass, to be honest.
And Robert, pass the baton to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've touched on all the right things. I think that even the research that your organization, Mark's done, the ABM Consortium, proves that almost 80% of ABM programs are not generating the results that were expected from the get-go. Now, there are a lot of reasons behind that, jumping directly into programs, but I think not identifying the buying center is one of those critical tactical errors that a lot of people are making. I mean, once again, without doing that, you're falling into a spray and pray mentality that we all know what those results are going to be.
Yeah, I see a lot of that, or I hear a lot of it in doing workshops and things like that, where, it's almost like people may understand that there's a group of people that they need to reach, but the attempt to do it is through a barrage of media, right, and then hoping that they've cast such a dense cloud of media over an IP that they've touched the right people inside, but yet there's no correlation yet between whether it actually did work or did not work. And, it's hopefully I'm not stealing thunder from anybody in a coming point here, but, it seems to me also that, the success of ABM is about pipeline velocity. It's about pulling people through the pipeline. It's about better targeting and segmentation and what you're trying to go after. But one of the things that I think the buying center enables us to do is again, that value equation. But to just contrast an example for a second, just a rhetorical use case, if you had 7 people come by the trade, you had 7 Steve Carells come by the trade show. They picked up, dozens of pens, and you got badge scans, and you put them in nurturing flows, and you got webinars and white paper downloads. Was that successful? I don't know. I mean, you don't know if they were a bunch of Steve Carells, or if, a few of those were in the buying center or were critical to you. And, the use case I was going to say is, what if you had those guys versus 3 people that came to a field event? Which one was better? You still don't have enough information. If I started to say the 3 people at the field event were the CEO, the CFO, and the CMO, and you were focused on them as being the critical unit, and that you had them in a break-apart session for 3 hours to examine your solution. Now, which of those 2 use cases is a marketing qualified account? I think most people look at the first one and would say, yeah, man, we had like 53 touch points and, amongst 7 people, and absolutely, that was a marketing qualified account. We passed it over to sales, and they followed up with all the people, and nothing happened. And most people would look at the other one and say, well, 3 people at an event, that's far less than 7. Obviously, because of the weight of the count, there was only 3 engagements versus like 52, and there's only 3 people compared to 7. Obviously, the first one is more qualified. And I think that is the part where the buying center allows you to have much more rational conversations with your CEO, with your VP of sales, and you can start to more speak their language, right? Like the salesperson is interested in, did you help me affect the right people? Did you help move the deal forward? The 7 people, the 7 Steve Carells didn't, most likely. May have, but you'd never be able to prove it. And in the other use case with the 3 decision makers, absolutely, positively, but it would never, the way most people or many people view marketing qualified accounts, it would never have qualified. So I think that's one of the things that's a new dimension that lays on top of ABM that I'm most excited about. And I obviously in prepping for this session with you guys today was doing a lot of thinking about that myself. Hey,
Yeah, I would
Srihari.
like to.
No,
Oh,
go
sorry,
ahead.
Mark.
Yeah, please,
No,
go
no.
ahead.
And I just wanted to add, I mean, you strike at the core of this. This is a foundational change inside of a lot of organizations from standard, what marketers know of demand generation into account-based marketing. So, listen, once again, I mean, they have the best of intentions, but if their KPIs need to be revisited. They need to be compensated in a different way. Measurement has to be done in a completely different way. And I may be jumping ahead and stealing someone else's thunder too. But that really is the crux of how everything's going to flow from that point on.
Srihari, you've mentioned the KPIs to me in the past. Would you like to share about the unfair? You've had a lot of conversations about people on this topic and how many marketers may feel it unfair to be evaluated based upon vanity metrics.
Yeah, there is a sentiment that the whole lead-based metrics is completely unfair to the B2B marketer. And I think rightly so, and I was alluding to that earlier. And I think if you actually start applying the target account list lens to the existing marketing efforts, just applying that lens can change how you actually see marketing. So CEOs will have a different perspective. We're actually going through one of these efforts with one of our customers where just doing ABM reporting, right, applied to existing marketing shows the marketing efforts in much better light to the CEO. So I think that's a very important point.
Fantastic. So I'm going to pass the baton to you, Srihari. We're moving into the third leg of the presentation, and each person is going to have 3 to 5 minutes to talk about their organization's approach to Buying Center, and then right after that we'll have a Q&A. So please queue up your questions, tweet on hashtag Summer of ABM if you get a chance, and continue enjoying the presentation. Take it away, Srihari.
Yeah, I'll try to make it 2 minutes so I give more time to Albert. Yeah, so we are the new kid on the block. We came out, but we're experiencing rapid growth. We got a great shout out from David Robb. I think if you go to the next slide, Mark, we essentially, the way we see it is we help marketers build, target, and measure. So the build piece is we help you build out your target lists and manage it for you, and build out your buying center and use data science in order to do that. And we've built what is called an account hub and a people hub, which integrates all your internal data and external data on accounts and people, and helps you build out your ABM strategy. And then the target piece is where you drive engagement. We integrate with Vendamore and other tools in order to actually execute those programs. And the measure piece is the reporting and metrics, making sure we can transition your organization from a traditional lead-based metrics to ABM metrics that actually will work, right? So that's essentially what we do.
I'm sorry, but my clicker wasn't clicking a moment ago here, and so I'm playing a little bit of catch up with you. One of the things that caught me when I saw your slides around the target was the concept of prescriptive recommendations, and I was wondering if you could speak to that for a second.
Yeah, so if you look at the 3 things, right, if you want to do ABM, how do you increase coverage? How do you increase reach? How do you increase engagement? If you analyze the data, you can actually make recommendations. You need to have these people that you're missing in each of these accounts that you should add to your account. Or there is a low reach, and we're seeing that this subject line is actually working for this profile. So use the subject line or drive engagement, right? So it's essentially it recommends, it's prescriptive based on data science.
Great. And one last one here, just playing catch up once again. I'm going to show, I saw there were two different measurement graphics in here. Just if you could spend 10 seconds on each and just tell us what we're looking at.
Yeah, so just applying the target account lens to every one of them. So how many marketing sourced leads do you have in the target account list versus how many marketing influenced leads do you have in your target account list, and how many closed deals do you have? What's the so that's essentially applying the target account list lens. And people have multiple target accounts, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, or any other way to slice and dice, and that's essentially what we provide.
Excellent. Hey, Robert.
Yeah, so Marketry, we are a revenue acceleration firm, and we get to use the fantastic technologies that Srihari and Christopher have developed with our clients. We're practitioners at heart. So what we do is we help them realize the promises that everyone's hearing about in regards to ABM, rolling that out. So what we've done is, what we've found is, and I think we touched on this real early in this, is that there is a lot of white noise out there. Marketers are trying to figure out what's true, what's not true, and quite honestly, they're flat out overwhelmed at the end of the day. So we work with marketing and sales teams to provide some bedrock, here, get stakeholders all on the same page, and we do that in a variety of different ways. But usually, what we've developed are a ABM high performance ABM blueprint, which allows them to, really hear from people that have been in the trenches how these programs are developed. What we found very early on is that the ROI of ABM is very, elusive out there. And it's because people aren't armed with the right tools, and getting back to, they're jumping directly into programs without strategy and planning, thinking about the hows and the whys, looking at things like, do we have budget? Do we have expertise? Do we have bandwidth? Are we going to do this internally? Are we going to work with an outside agency to help us realize these promises? So we've developed a workshop, and we've also, Srihari just mentioned, we also have a very prescriptive revenue blueprint modeling that we can go through and really map out the road to ABM ROI, if you will.
Excellent. And so, Christopher, help walk us through the concepts that you have, and if you could give me cues on how you would like me to progress the slides, that'd be great.
Sure. Well, first of all, the absolute basics, the basic level of ABM is to ring fence the top accounts by IP number and address them with your content, your ads, etc. Online using a lot of publishers. But then taking it to the next level, which I think you definitely should do, is to look at buying centers. You can click now, Mark. Look at buying centers. So looking at this chart, we now say, okay, this client, they want to target especially the tech people inside JP Morgan or inside whatever account. Then what you do is you click again, Mark. Then you use tech media. And quite often when we work with clients, they do target several areas. So it's not very unusual that you blend tech media, management media, such as Forbes, Wall Street Journal, Link, etc., and marketing media if you want to target people like us. And then on top of that, if you want to be even more granular, you can complement it by cookie pools to ring fence title. And the most narrow one is and everyone is based on, it's kind of on top of the IP. So first of all, you do ring fence the accounts. That's a no-brainer. You do ring fence the accounts by IP. But then you add finer stuff on top of it, depending on which agenda you want to drive, what kind of goals you have, which target audience you want to reach internally. And the most granular one is when you add semantic targeting on top. So you're ring fencing specific articles that are talking about your topics. But if you click again, Mark, that's kind of more and more advanced level of advertising. You can open up this picture a bit more. But we do need to remember, and this is actually something that I realized when I started Endemol almost 9 years ago, is that I was a CIO for one period in between my other startup companies. I was a CIO for a bigger company, and I realized how political all decisions are. So it's not about just reaching the decision makers. You really need to reach the users, the influencers, etc. And most salespeople and most old-fashioned marketing methods are really focused on the left-hand side of this picture, which is a few key stakeholders, and they are not often enough. What I realized when I was a CIO is that when you buy something really complex, you actually need to buy a change, not just a product. You need to buy a change. And to drive change internally is really, really hard. Not only that, you need to get a consensus in the organization to make the change. And that's where account-based marketing comes in, I think. And yeah, you can go to the next picture. I'll just touch on this quickly. So account-based marketing is really focused on the top accounts, both existing where you want to drive cross-selling, but also the new ones, the green ones, the twins that you want to get into. And the basic fundament of ABM is to put more money behind the accounts where you have the potential money or existing money, much like salespeople do. That's why you have much more salespeople on the left-hand side of the picture than you have in the right-hand side of the picture. My final slide is about a recommendation based on all the programs we're involved in, what fits where, and who should do what. So account-based advertising is kind of a no-brainer on your top accounts. And you can click again, Mark. If you're doing if you primarily have a lot of smaller accounts, you should have marketing automation as your key strategy. If you want to go from good to great, you should use marketing automation also on the key accounts, but then you need to apply account-specific rules. It's not technically difficult, as many of you know, but I would say from an organizational point of view, don't go there until you're ready. So make sure you have account-based advertising and the normal marketing automation in place first. And then looking at it from the sales side, I strongly think that marketing should prepare a lot of things for sales, but sales should be distributing content via LinkedIn and Twitter. And as I mentioned before, when it comes to emails and direct mails and phone calls, etc., they should be drafted by marketing, but finalized and executed by key account managers. Not the traditional mails, though, that they should be executed by marketing, but sales should be involved in adding a few sentences here and there that are making them super personalized, not just, "Hi, Mark," but "Hi, Mark, thank you for the meeting last week about XYZ," or "Congratulations to the merger with whatever." So something that makes it much more less marketing, actually. So, yeah.
Excellent. We're reaching the top of the hour, so we're probably going to have to go through a couple of questions real quickly here, just to keep in touch with people's time. And we had one here. Can you expand on the kind of channels for level of influence? So I think where this person was trying to head is there a correlation between the buying center types and the media that those people would most likely consume?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah.
Just give an example.
I typically illustrate this like, consider you have a sun in front of you, and then you have the beams going out. So most people do consume the same type of media on average. I mean, they read the daily news, they read the sports, whatever. But then, connected to our role, we are consuming a higher percentage of some type of media. If we're marketeers, we go to Market Advisor, we go to Marketing Profs, we go to Adweek, etc. A typical CEO is consuming way more Forbes, Wall Street Journal than does a receptionist. But of course, these are only stereotypes. They're not, it's not a fact. It's more like a heat map. So looking again at the sun, you would see, well, tech people are obviously more visiting GitHub and SourceForge than I would. I'm actually never on those sites, even though I'm sort of a half techie. I go to management media and marketing media on top of just regular daily news. So yeah, you can use that. It's pretty accurate actually. That's what we've seen.
Hey, before I pass the baton, there's one thing I wanted to mention here, which is, the question of the day has been, do you know your ABM buying centers? And ZenIQ did put something together, which is an assessment that you can perform against that. It's a diagnostic. And you can go to this URL, zeniq.io, buying-center-assessment. And I'm sure that they will follow up with that message as well. Srihari, I imagine that your prescriptive analytics may have a play in this answer as well.
Yes. So if you look at the behaviors, wisdom of crowds, right? So if you look at behaviors of salespeople and your best salespeople, the marketing history, what's worked, you can actually mine and figure out a lot of things about what channel works for what persona, and I think it's different for each company, but there is enough data there if you can just take it out of it being a tribal knowledge, and that's essentially what we do, right? We use data science in order to do that and actually prescribe at an individual account level and at a list level what you should do for the individual people in each account.
Robert, how does your company make decisions about channel mix when looking at highly targeted programs?
How to make the decision? Usually, for us right now, it's been very manual. It's a laborious process. It's getting into the data, looking at the data, and putting a lot of man hours against it. But absolutely agree. I mean, when you look at a buying center, you're looking at, case and example of current buying cycle we're in, IT, marketing, sales, C-suite. So you have users, you have IT, you have the C-suite that's only caring about financial information at the end of the day. So all of those messages have to be tailored to those particular people inside that buying center. So, and for us, that is working with the client to identify each one of these roles, each one of these personas, if you will, and then matching the appropriate content directly to it.
And I'll have one last one, and then we're going to probably have to call it a day here. And that is, somebody was asking, KPIs and measurement. I think next to account selection and something like predictive analytics, probably the next most common topic is at measurement and attribution and KPIs. I think there's a lot of desire to really consume this better. But is there a play with this intersection of buying centers and KPIs? Is there a way that this enables new measurement, different measurement? Is it should we be using the same? So I guess let's assume that somebody may have a platform that offers analytics. Does Buying Center bring new dimensions or capabilities of measurement that they should be considering?
Yeah, I can say something here, and I'm sure Robert and Christopher will have a lot to say here too. So let's take this example of how many marketing influenced leads, okay, versus marketing influenced C-level execs in your target accounts. So if you go by the number, marketing influence leads, it might not be let's say you say quarter over quarter, and this is actually a real example. So quarter over quarter, marketing influence leads was flat, okay? But when we actually applied the C-level filter and said marketing influenced C-level leads in your target account list, in your tier 1 list, that actually was increased by 300%. So that is, that completely changes the picture, right? And now it starts making sense, right? So that's an example, right?
Excellent. Robert, Christopher?
One perspective that we try to cover with each client is we look at, let's say we're targeting the tech audience inside an account and the C-level audience. Then we're using those two media types, and we can see per account, per media type, which content that resonates the best. And this is giving sales a lot of intelligence around how well are we going among the tech people, and how well are we positioned among the C-level people. So you might see, if you optimize a campaign on an aggregated level, you make tons of mistakes, because there's a devilish thing in averages. So when you look at it per account, you see, oh, JP Morgan is showing great traction in tech media, nothing in C-level media. Oops, what does it mean? And the tech audience really kicks off with this article around digital transformation or storage or whatever. Whereas in another account, it's the complete opposite. So this gives you strong indications on which internal audience you should actually be careful with, because you might be at risk if you are not seeing, you see great traction at C-level, you see no traction from the tech people, and you're a tech company. You might be at a very high risk in there. It's not really KPI, it's more intelligence. So CIA marketing.
Robert, would you like to chime in?
No, I think Christopher just nailed it right there. I mean, that's what really it's about. I mean, looking at it from leaving the macro account level and really diving into the micro, that's where the engagement matters at that point. So, I mean, Christopher's example was spot on.
Excellent. Hey, I'd like to thank all of our speakers today, and I'd like to thank all those people who registered and attended today. This is the first of a series of, I think the number's 5, of the Summer of ABM. And each time we're going to bring a compelling set of speakers like today, as well as a disruptive and fun topic, and bring it to you in a new, modern way. And we hope that you really enjoyed the conversation today. So I'd like to thank everybody once again and look forward to seeing you all again real soon. Have a great day.
Thank you for having us,
Thank you,
Mark.
Thank you, Mark.